Good evening, everyone. Hello. That's impressive. Welcome, everyone. Black Girl Magic, Black Girl Allies, and everyone in between. Thank you for being here with us tonight. On behalf of the Mind Trust and the Highland Project, we really appreciate you taking time tonight to be with us. You online also. Tonight is going to be special. Tonight we're celebrating, we're reflecting, and we are encouraging each other in action. And tonight, you'll be reminded of the power that is found in words and in our voices. Up next, in setting the stage for this evening, you're going to hear the voices of 4 ladies, 4 Black girls. Those girls, their voices, it's going to inspire you through their gift of poise and poetry. Please get ready for Rakaya Wilson, who's a 3rd grader at Global Preparatory Academy. Mayana Reed, a 9th grader. Miss Mayana Reed, a 9th grader at Believe Circle City High. Miss Mariah Cattels, a 9th grader at Rooted High School. And Indie's own Kay Huggs, singer, songwriter, and poet. Welcome, Black Girl Magic.
I am somebody by Kay Huggs. I am kind, I am worthy, I am smart, I have courage, I am beautiful. I am deserving, I am happy, I am brown, I am bravery. Yo soy alguien, I am somebody.
I wear my crown as I look out to the world we created. Through sorrow and pain, we climbed and we gained the intelligence, the strength. Together, we're pushing forward to a new, brighter future. I hold hands with the warriors of justice in our path to peace. Those people who hate and scream out of fear of what they don't know. They hurt us with their words, and they hurt us by their chain of hate. We pulled back, and now we're here. Even though we suffer through degradation and discrimination, we rose again, we fought again, we cried again, and we celebrated again. We grow and learn so we understand what we see, hear, and want to know. That way we truly make our path to peace.
Just in my first year of high school, when I stand, I once was you. Pour into me the love and support that you needed in my shoes. When you see me, see more than a teen. Out of the mouth of babes, hear me when I say, this Black girl is courageous. I will make a difference.
Oh, what a pretty girl. And one day, a beautiful woman. Be proud of your skin. No matter your complexion, from shades of light to hues that are dark as night, always shine your light and let your magic take you high, pretty girl. When you're a brown girl like me, stereotypes are what they often see. Unfair blankets woven with ideas of who I be without ever knowing the real me. Brown girls tearing down walls, brown girls calling for peace, brown girls shattering glass ceilings, brown girls chopping down trees. Hear the crack in the cold fall when her branches fall to the ground, and lying down is debris in her leaves. Multicolored beauty with the roots still firm, reaching around underground to keep nourishing her. She causes rifts for minds to shift, for promise to bend at her will. New seeds planted in birth or from the branches rebuilt, to raise our sights with our heads high as a rooftop still. Still trees may fall, somehow some still breathe. We still stand tall or rebuild like the brown girl, like me.
Let's give those beautiful poets another round of applause. They did an amazing job. Good evening, everyone. My name is Shannon Williams, and I have the pleasure of serving as Executive Vice President of the Mind Trust. Thank you all so much for joining us this evening. We've already seen Black Girl Magic with our beautiful poets, and we will continue the experience as the discussion gets underway and some of the city's most dynamic women will share their perspectives with us. What we know is this: Black girls and Black women are indeed magic. Magic is described as an extraordinary power or influence, seemingly from a supernatural source. And that, everyone, is a Black woman. We are Black magic because of our sheer force of determination. Black women are magic because of our ability to withstand the challenges that often come our way. We are magic because of our ability to influence, and that was really evident in the most recent presidential election, but we're not going to talk politics just yet. Black women are magic because of our tenacity and our will to persevere. We are magic because of our inner and outer beauty, the various hues of our skin, and the love and passion that exude to those who we know and even complete strangers. Black women are magic simply because. It was really important for the Mind Trust to partner with the Highland Project on this event because we understand the power of women, and especially the power of Black women. At the Mind Trust, our primary objective is to provide every Indianapolis child with access to an excellent education. And we work towards that goal by amplifying the power of neighborhoods and communities, supporting schools to grow, and by disrupting systemic racism. At the Mind Trust, we know that Black women play an essential role in helping us accomplish our mission and fulfill our vision of a day when race and income are no longer predictors of life outcomes for children. Our CEO, Brandon Brown, as well as our entire team, are unapologetic about our mission. This is why we intentionally connect families with resources to help students succeed. Some recent examples are the community learning sites that provided safe in-person learning environments for children of working families. The sites were held in a variety of neighborhoods, and they consisted of community centers and schools and churches. We also launched the Indy Summer Learning Labs in conjunction with the United Way of Central Indiana. And over the summer, that 5-week program resulted in accelerated student learning. And we have an initiative called the Go Farther Literacy Fund, which provides financial resources directly to families to help them execute creative strategies that will increase student literacy. So in addition to our work to support educators and academic quality, we are proud of all of these community-based initiatives that serve students and families during really uncertain times during the pandemic. Tonight's event recognizes that systemic change in education, healthcare, politics, and economic mobility are interconnected. Think about this for a moment. If Black women, who are the nurturers of our students, are experiencing a pay gap, if they are having their right to vote compromised, if they are not able to access compassionate and quality health care, and if they are still fighting racism in all aspects of their lives, then what does that do to the children whose lives they impact? Our community must recognize that the well-being and empowerment of Black women directly affects a child's ability to succeed. The future is female. I know that. I hope many of you know that. It's female, and Black women in particular are going to be essential in shaping what that future will be. The intellect, instinct, and steadfastness that will usher us into the future are all characteristics that we've had for generations. I'll give you an example. There was a kingdom in West Africa called Dahomey, and within that kingdom was an elite force of fighters, and those fighters were known as Minos. The Minos were all female Black warriors who protected their kingdom with such integrity and reverence that they were referred to as our mothers. So in Dahomey, Minos literally translates to our mothers. So when we talk about Black girl magic and the power of Black women, our legacy is and was created in part by some of the best warriors ever, and they just so happen to be female. As Black women, it is our responsibility to protect our youth, it's our responsibility to protect our communities, and it's our responsibility to protect our cities, because we are the Minos, we are the mothers. I am so excited to dig into tonight's conversation and to get started, but before I do, I'd like to invite a phenomenal woman to the stage. Gabrielle Wyatt is the founder of the Highland Project, a national organization committed to supporting Black women in creating multi-generational wealth and sustainable change that will aid in a transformative and truly equitable future for all of us. So please help me welcome Gabrielle Wyatt.
Thank you, Shannon, and thank you to the entire Mind Trust team, the Highland Project team, because tonight is just beautiful, isn't it? It's full of love, it's full of inspiration, and we wouldn't be here today without the team who made this come to be. I'm Gabrielle. I'm the founder and CEO of the Highland Project, and I am just honored to be invited to this community tonight to celebrate with you the audacious visions and brilliance of Black women and girls. For those of you who are new to the Highland Project, we believe we must build and sustain a pipeline of Black women who are leading structural change, not just in education, but in economic empowerment, well-being, and democracy, because we know that that will truly create multi-generational wealth and multi-generational opportunity in our communities. We know that the issues impacting wealth creation as Black women, we know they involve multiple issues, that they are intersectoral, and therefore we need interdisciplinary leadership to create multi-generational wealth. And so at the Highland Project, we center us. We center Black women as powerful change makers in their communities. And we do that by bringing together women across different fields who are creating change. We empower them to recognize their own well-being, to put that first and foremost. We empower them to build collective power, and we empower them with resources. We invest $100,000 in every woman that we support because we trust their brilliance. We trust their impact. We believe that when Black women have access to an incredible sisterhood, to a community focused on well-being, to a community that gives them trust and capital that recognizes their brilliance, we believe that all boats will rise. And so at the Highland Project, we're building much more than a pipeline of incredible women, to my mind. We're building a movement that centers and invests in the very real and lived experiences of Black women, because we know we are essential to this nation's prosperity. And we've seen this to be true right here in Indiana. I think about our ancestors of Naomi Bauman Talbert Anderson. I think about Betty Ola Fortson. And I think about our current leaders like Shannon Williams and Dr. Alicia Johnson, who are relentless advocates for educational justice. I think about a new friend of mine, Katara McCarty, who is an entrepreneur centering Black and Indigenous women in recognizing and preserving their futures, their wellness. And so for me, when I think about Black girl magic, I think about these women, past, current, and future. I think about the futurists that we are as Black women. And I think that Black women in Indianapolis are proving that when Black women win, we all win. It's quite simple. And yet, despite our tremendous intellectual power, our tremendous economic power, our tremendous electoral power, we are too often not underrepresented, but underconsidered. We are too often not underrepresented, but undervalued. We are too often not underrepresented, but underinvested in. I wake up every single day envisioning a world where Black women and girls are disrupting the racial wealth gap across America through structural change and entrepreneurship. And this evening, our conversation is going to focus on just that. How do we get there in education, in the economy, philanthropy, and more? And to get there, we must first listen. We must first listen to Black women and girls. And that's exactly what we did this summer at the Highland Project. We partnered up with Brilliant Corners Research and Strategies, and we listened. We listened to over 700 Black women across America about what does it mean to create wealth? What does it mean to live a thriving life? And what are the barriers to getting there? And we heard what we know at our core at the Highland Project and what we practice at our core. And that's that success, wealth, it's more than dollars in pockets. It's about our ability to thrive, our ability to breathe, our ability to realize our educational dreams and not be crippled with debt, our ability to have access to incredible and healthy foods, our ability to have loving relationships, and more. But to achieve this vision that is quite simple to my mind, to achieve this vision, we need our leaders across sectors prioritizing and protecting our right to vote. We need our leaders fighting racism and discrimination. We need our leaders improving K-12 education. We need Black women to be centered in policy. We need them to be centered in design and implementation of solutions for their communities. And so we're going to unpack these findings and more tonight and talk about what does it really mean to move from listening to not stick in rhetoric, but get to action with Black women at the center in this nation and in Indianapolis. And I'm now proud to introduce our esteemed moderator for the evening to guide us through this, what will be an incredible conversation, Katira Winfrey. Katira Winfrey's return to Wish TV is sort of a homecoming. She got her start in the news behind the scenes at Wish TV in 2010, and now she's back as the station's first ever multicultural reporter. Although she considers Houston, Texas home, she spent several years growing up right here in Indianapolis and is a graduate of North Central High School. Back in Indiana, she's now ready to share in the Hoosier experience again. In the last decade, her career has taken her to several cities, including Texas, Oklahoma, and most recently, Allentown, Pennsylvania. She's covered everything from a deadly accident that killed several veterans in West Texas, tornadoes, and a national story involving the shooting death of Terrence Crutcher by a Tulsa police officer, Betty Shelby. But the stories she's loved the most are the ones that allow her to get to know the people and to tell their unique stories. She is a graduate of one of the largest historically Black colleges and university, Texas Southern University, and a member of the National Association of Black Journalists. In her free time, she likes to travel, read, enjoy movies, play basketballs, and spend time with her family and dog. I'd love to pass it over to our incredible moderator for the evening. Let's give her a warm welcome, everyone. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I wasn't sure if I was supposed to go to my seat or come over here, so if you see me playing musical seats, that's why. Thank you all. Thank you all for coming out here. I'm looking in the audience, and you guys look great. Don't y'all feel good? I know when I look, okay, give yourselves. I know when I look around and I see so many beautiful faces and so many cool hairdos, okay? I feel a little inspired. I'm looking around and I'm like, I might need to try that. All right, so we are hoping to have a wonderful evening tonight, talk about some really interesting and important conversations. Just listening to Gabrielle and Shannon up here talking about what Black women contribute to society, I know those things resonate with you, and particularly about the Highland Project, which we will really get into when we get the panelists up here and we'll talk. But one thing that really stood out to me, something Gabrielle said, was that Black women, although we are the center of so much, we are under-considered and under-invested in. And that just was a stab to the heart. Because that is serious, that is real life. And I know so many of you have felt that way. You pour into and you give into and you still feel ignored. Today, we hope we can get to the bottom of that and find ways to let us no longer be under-considered. Let us no longer be under-invested in. And so when we talk about the Highland Project, we're going to be diving into quite a few things, particularly as it relates to the lived experiences of Black women. We all have similar stories, but they have different backgrounds, and we can all relate to each of them, I'm sure. And so during this conversation, we'll talk about the Highland Project as it relates to the economy, education, health and wellness, and politics. We briefly touched on that. This was an interesting year for politics with Black women leading the charge, as usual. All right, so we're going to be bringing up all the panelists here in just a moment, and we'll get a chance to introduce them and give them a chance to introduce themselves as we get into this conversation. And thank you all for coming out here on a rainy day to sit in here and get some good conversation and get some good loving from your family, all right? Thank you. Introduce them all individually. I'm not sure. All right, so everyone is seated now, and again, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to go down the line really fast, let everyone give a chance to introduce themselves. So I'll start with you, and we can just go straight on down the line.
Good evening. My name is Tavana Harris Askew, and by day I'm Chief of Staff and General Counsel for Health and Hospital Corporation. And for all hours of the day and night, I am also wife to Charles Askew and mother of 4 wonderful children. They are my heartbeats. I do everything I do because of them, and that is who I am in a nutshell.
Are we, okay, great. I was like, I didn't get the instruction about turning it on. Good evening. Thank you so much for having me join this evening. I am Angela Smith-Jones. I am the Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at Health and Hospital Corporation, which does include Eskenazi Health and the Department of Health and Emergency Medical Services. Prior to this role, I was Deputy Mayor of Economic Development for the City of Indianapolis for our Mayor, Joe Hogsett. And like Tavana, I too am 24 hours a day, a mother of 2, a senior in high school and a freshman. Pray for me. So that's a lot going on there, but I'm very excited to be here tonight. Thank you.
Good evening, Kelly Marshall, and I too am a mother. Pray for me as well, and so honored to have my daughter, another Black girl, here in the audience. But I currently, first and foremost, I'm an educator as well, an educator of over 20 to I think 30 at this point, 30 plus years. I currently hold the role of Senior Vice President of School Support and Incubation with the Mind Trust. So thank you all for being here.
Thank you all, and thank you all for coming out. I am State Representative Robin Shackelford. I serve House District 98, which is over on the east side and the far east side of Indianapolis. I'm also the chair of the Indiana Black Legislative Caucus and the ranking minority member of our Health Committee. And I am a great aunt and happy to be here.
All right. Well, since everybody is giving their status, I am a proud mother of a 10-year-old dog. I just want to say, you know, there's this saying, right, that black don't crack. Come on now. You said 30 years. You got kids in high school. Listen.
They're adults. They're adults.
The melanin is popping along this panel. Can we just say that? But not just the melanin, the professionalism. This is a key example of what Black women can be, what Black women can do. All you young folk in the audience, come on now. So yes, I am sure we're going to have a wonderful conversation. I'm sure with all of the experiences these panelists have had, they'll be able to share some of that. And before we get into the whole conversation with the Highland Project, we're going to loosen up a little bit, and we talk about Black girl magic. And that encompasses so many things, and so many different things inspires that. So I'm going to start with you. Just a quick question. Was there any woman in your life that inspired you to exude that Black girl magic? What was it, or who was it in your life that played that role for you of encouraging you to go for your dreams?
So for me, it was my mom. And, you know, she's always surprised. I don't know why. Every time I say that. She married in her senior year of high school and didn't finish. So she doesn't have a college degree. But she has more life experiences that would equate to more degrees than all the people in this room. She's had many hardships, she's had blessings, she's had ups and downs, but the one thing she always did is pray to God and keep her head up in each and every situation. And so when doors are slammed in my face, when doors are opened for me, when life is hard, when life is good, she is the person that I look to as an example. You know, you've heard, what would Jesus do? I'm like, what would Evangelist Harris do? Right? And so for me, my mother is my foundation. She is my sounding board. You know, we've had some recent experiences, and, you know, I'll tell her about it. I'm one of those people, I talk about a thing, but I'm very solution focused and I move on. But that doesn't mean internally, because we'll talk about self-care and all of that probably a little bit in a while. It doesn't mean that I have moved on. And she will always check on me, no matter if I'm coming here or doing the next thing, because she wants to always make sure that I have centered myself, that I prayed, that I've had my right faith in God, and that I do what He has for me to do. And so for me, my mother, with more degrees than life could have given her, with more fortitude, with more strength than anybody else I know, my mother is the Black girl that inspires me, and I know will continue to inspire me for years to come.
Awesome. Amen to checking up on folks. And I'm going to hop down the line really fast to Representative Shackelford. Share with us, what would you, if you could put into words, what would you tell your younger self?
Okay, if I could put that into words, I would tell my younger self to be more courageous and confident. In high school, in grade school, I was so shy. More of an introvert versus extrovert. But I knew I wanted to make changes, whether it was in my school or in my community. But I was more behind the scenes, the person that did all the behind the scenes stuff. So people literally had to push me to be out there in front. But if I can tell myself, you got this, just be courageous, be outspoken, be yourself, then that would be the advice I would give to my younger self.
Awesome. All righty. All right. And so we can move it along. I'm going to go ahead and move to Ms. Marshall. What would you, or what are some good examples of Black girl magic? If you could put that into words.
Good examples of Black girl magic, you know, I'm going to go first to the students. When I see the young ladies advocating for themselves, when I see them taking a stand and trying to do something that uplifts not just them, but their fellow classmates, that's an example of Black girl magic. When I'm in the grocery store and I see that mother battling with those children as they're going up and down the aisles, and then that one look that every Black woman in here knows that they can give, and that child settle down, that's Black girl magic.
All right. We all know it, right? My grandmother took her shoe off in church one time and gave me that look from the back pew, and I was like, yes, ma'am. All right. All right, Ms. Smith-Jones. So same question for you that I asked Tavana here. Who was the inspiration? Who was that Black girl magic inspiration in your life?
So like Tavana, it was my mother. My mother is amazing. She's this little bitty lady. She keeps saying she's 5 feet tall, but she's not. And she punches above her height and her weight class like an amazing warrior. So my mother was the oldest of 9 children and was very responsible, such a dreamer, such a driver, and literally inspired me and my 2 siblings for all that we've accomplished. She is brilliant, super compassionate, but also very stern and goal-driven. Like, it takes hard work. You get nowhere by slacking, and your education is the key to everything. She always said, it's the only thing that I can give you that no one can take from you. And it has resounded true, and my children repeat that because I repeat that myself. But she is absolutely, to this day, she is rock solid, reliable, and such an inspiration because she is what I call an old school RN, which for anybody who knows RNs from Indianapolis who went to St. Vincent's, it's just about the equivalent of being a physician. But because she was the oldest of 9, she could not afford medical school, and she had a passion for healing and people. And old school RNs are 4-cornered people. They have structure and order and so much love, and that's so apparent in my mom. And literally, like Tavana, anything in my life going on, excellent, great, horrible, challenging, difficult, she's right there and has words of wisdom at all times.
Awesome. What that sounds like to me is you can always call your mom to help you set your doctor's appointments.
I don't think that's what I said.
Or call her and say, how do I respond to this?
Yeah, that's what I said.
There's been times where I've had to call my aunt, who was my mother figure, and I would say something, and I'm like, they just made me mad. And even till this day, she's like, do I need to call them? No, ma'am. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. But that's what I heard from that. So we're going to go ahead. We got time to let out some of those jitters, and so we're going to jump right into some of the information that comes out in this Highland Project. Just looking at the information, one of the things that stood out to me was that the median wealth gap in Black single women under 35 is $101, compared to a white man who is $22,640. That's more of a 225 something difference when you times difference than that. I couldn't believe that, so I had to look it up. It's true. Okay? So I just couldn't believe that. And considering the impact that Black women have with spending power and all that, that was just really a fascinating topic. So I'm going to stick with you, Ms. Smith-Jones, considering your background with diversity, equity, inclusion, and working with the city. How do you feel that Black women are on the up and up when it comes to finances, when it comes to gaining some of that economic mobility?
No. But I have more to that story. I want to start with saying be encouraged, because we are really at a pinnacle in our lives to actually make a difference and turn and change that. I would say that historically, we have been left behind. And I love exactly how Gabrielle put it, because it's not that we're not present, but we are ignored and we're overlooked and we're mistreated. And that's what has actually created the gap. Not that we're not there, but when people are looking to promote or hire, whatever that is, they literally look just right through us or right past us. Even if we're raising our hand, let's just give you an example of being in a meeting when you have something to say and literally everyone else in the room talks, and either they say your idea as if it were theirs or they never call on you. And that's a primary example of what happens in the workforce. And so very often we are given the roles that are the least appreciated and therefore the least valued and the least paid. There is great opportunity, I do believe, from the economic development world, and that more and more are seeing the value of diversity overall, which means we are included. The other is if we stick together, and if one of us gets in the room, let somebody else in. I think too sadly, we've been our own worst enemies. And when we get in a place, it's that crab mentality. And it's not our fault. We were taught, there's a quota and we can only have one of you here. So if we got in the door, we were slamming it shut, putting our feet in our back. That's it. I'm the one in here. But honestly, our power comes in being a team and sticking together and pushing and holding each other up. And really saying, when you are in the opportunity or space, like I was as deputy mayor, to say, you know what? Well, where's Madam Maggie Lewis? Why isn't she here? Where is Madam Robin Shackelford? Why isn't she here? And that is the power and how we elevate, because we share our power that we have, and then that actually creates more opportunity. And that is how we are going to actually, while we're at this peak right now, at this pinnacle, to continue to elevate. But that gap is real, but we can address it.
And one just follow-up question. You talk about opening that door and inviting people in, but when you stepped in that door, was that something you had to kick the door down and get in? Because being the deputy mayor for the economic development, that's a major thing. How did you find your footing?
So the long story to my getting there has to do with my dad, because he has always been a mentor and somebody who's pulled people up, and he had great political opportunity. My dad was very privileged to have worked for U.S. Senator Birch Bayh, may he rest in peace. And that was how I actually got in the door. But once at the table and in the room, I will be quite honest with you, 98% of the time I was the only person of color in the room. 92% of the time I was the only woman in the room. And all but one economic development project, I was the only black or woman of color in the room. And so I did have to fight in the rooms to establish myself. And that comes with being self-confident, right? Having my girls behind me, and they know who they are. There are several of them in this room who would say, you got this, I got your back, da-da-da. All, again, the team. It's never just you, it's always the team. So I always had a team around me in the moments where I'm like, oh my gosh, I gotta go in this room where I'm the only one, and I have to, tell all these people X, Y, and Z, which is usually what they did not want to hear when I was for the city. But it is a fight, but you just have to go with grace, excellence, always have your back, and then and own it in your posture, and I'm here because I have earned this right to be here.
And one last question before we start moving on to the other panelists. You talk about you've earned this spot to be here, and that's a hard thing for some people to wrap their mind around when they constantly see instances of racism, sexism, and the last time they told me no, the last 10 times they told me no. How do we continue to break that down? How do our allies continue to help break down those barriers when it comes to sexism, racism?
Okay, so you really have to be bold, and you really have to do the work to build your own self-confidence. At the end of the day, you're the person who's standing at that table as Deputy Mayor of Economic Development, so you're me, right? You're in that room with those people who can write $7.5 million personal checks, and the bank clears it. They hand the cash over because they have it. You have to know you deserve to be there. So do your work, build your confidence, build your team. And I literally, my sister, who is phenomenal, she's a physician in Chicago, emergency medicine, she just sent me an article today. I'll have to share it. But Harvard Business Review about a black woman, the former CEO of Xerox. I deserve to be in this space. So we did the work. The mayor chose me because I'd done the work. You are chosen because you're doing the work. And just build on your confidence, because you do deserve to be there. Don't doubt it. And that, for me, is the greatest work. That's the biggest gap, is that we just have to own, I actually probably deserve to be your boss, really. But but I know I deserve to be here. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I need to practice I need that $1 million check. I need to get my voice.
7.5 million.
I need
That's
to
what
get
I
my voice right for that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead and sign right there for me. So we're going to move around just a little bit. Ms. Marshall, she's talking about sexism, racism in the business and the economic world. A lot of these things are still present in education. We know that black students are more likely to be suspended. We know that fewer black women are in the classroom. Talk about what you've seen in your 30 years of doing this, how things have improved, how things have stayed the same when it comes to racial equity and having people who look like you in the classroom.
Well, I can say, as I sit here with 30 plus years, if we look at the average percent of teachers that are out in the work field, it still hasn't changed much from 70 to 80% of them being white female. Now, I will say that there is an increasing number of black females that are taking a stand and stepping into that CEO role. One of the reasons that I'm in the seat that I'm in now, because I'm bought in to the work of the Mind Trust. In the past 2-3 years, I know that we've incubated and helped to support at least 10 female women, or 10 females, to actually get them in those seats where they can make those decisions. And so there are steps, and there are changes that are happening. But when I can look back 30 years and that percentage, and again, I don't want to take anything from my white female teachers because they're holding it down, right? I want a high quality teacher no matter what. But there's something to say when the percentage hasn't changed, or it's changed so very little that we're still saying, well, we've got to find out how to get that pipeline of black teachers. We've got to find out how do we connect with those HBCUs. And ultimately, it goes down to funding. And so, when we have access and opportunity that's put in front of our people, we step forward. But when we're coming out of college full of debt, and we're looking at teacher salaries that are at the bottom, that doesn't encourage a female to actually go into the field of education. So yes, we're making steps by organizations, and the support of organizations such as the Mind Trust and all of the others that are out there, but not enough.
Absolutely. And I can attest to that. And my question is, when I taught briefly, and here in Indianapolis, student teachers don't get paid. They're in those classes all day long, and many of these people have families that they need to take care of. And you talk about the Mind Trust and them making an effort to diversify education and do all these things, creating these charter schools that have diverse professionals lead them. When we talk about the Highland Report, it says that 59% of black women surveyed are concerned about the quality of their education. And so often we hear, well, education doesn't start and end in the school. How much of a role do mothers play, grandmothers play, aunties play in getting our children educated and not just leaving it to the school systems?
They play a huge role. Now, first, I always want to make sure we get this data out here. So we've just recovered or are recovering from a pandemic, right? Everyone assumed and were prepared for the statewide standardized assessment results to be lower. We were prepared, right, to experience that. What we weren't prepared to hear was that of students in grades 3 through 8 on the I Learned statewide assessment, only 8.1% of Black students demonstrated proficiency in both ELA and math. Only 8.1. In Marion County, our white students more than 4 times perform better than our Black students. And so when we think about the role that the mothers and grandmothers play, they don't even know the depth of the role that they play. And so it's huge, it's important. But first, it's on the responsibility of the schools and organizations such as with the Mind Trust and others that are out there to get the word and the messaging out there. Because a lot of our mothers will take on that responsibility if they're just aware of what the data is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you so much. We're going to switch gears now and talk to Ms. Asnew here. So, when you talk about, well, I'll go back on that. Why is it so important to incorporate community into these pushes for social justice and equity and things of that nature?
So the foundation of change in the Black community has been in our churches. It has been in our community service organizations. It's been our grassroots organizations. For us not to acknowledge that would be criminal, right? You know, we had this thing called an election recently, right? And so we have this phenomenal woman, this phenomenal sister who is Vice President of the United States of America, Kamala Harris. She is a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. I am a proud member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. However, let me tell you this. We will joke and we will kid, but in that election, we saw the power of Black Greek letter organizations coming together. And so when we don't care what colors we wear, when we don't care what handbag we carry, when we don't care how much money we make, and we put the right people in the room regardless of age and economics, and that we understand that sometimes they may come from a corporation, or they may come from Second Street Baptist Church, or they may be a member of Delta Sigma Theta, and we let them sit around the table and do the work, then real progress happens. And so that is why for us, when we're hungry, when we need help, we go to our churches first, we go to our community service organizations first, and they are the footprint, they are the foundation of how we get work done in our community.
Absolutely. And it's interesting that you say just the sisterhood in that. Again, when we talk about Black Girl Magic and we talk about leaning on one another to achieve a better goal, that ties back into it. And since we brought up the election, I'm going to skip over to Representative Shackelford real fast. What's your take on just how Black women mobilized, you could even say again, but even more so this time, to really get people out there, get people registered, and try to enact some type of change?
So I think this past election, we saw that Black women was at their last string. They was like, okay, this is it. He got to get out. We don't care what we got to do. We don't care how many lunches we got to put together. We don't care how many hours we got to volunteer, but we are going to make a change this time. In the past, Black women have definitely had a huge impact in elections, coming out marching, protesting, doing calls. But this last election, I think we had already been taken through such tragedy through our communities and experienced so much that it just energized everyone, in particular the Black woman. And so that took them to the higher power of volunteering. Like they went to the next level. Like they was like, we are going to be determined that we are going to get our people in office. We're going to get this person out. And so you just seen Black women setting up protests, Black women setting up voter registration everywhere you went.
But we're going to switch to another topic that we all probably have experienced, as particularly Black women, when it comes to healthcare and the bias and the inequities. We had 2 women die in the last year, both with both physicians, both asking for help, not getting it. When you, and I think I will, let me see. Yeah, I'll ask you, Ms. Smith-Jones, what can be done to improve health outcomes for Black women? I know it's a lot about advocating for yourself, but what else can we do to kind of get the message out there that this is still a problem?
Well, actually, thank you for giving me that question. As healthcare institutions, and Devon and I work for the exact same organization, it is really incumbent upon healthcare institutions to stand up and, first of all, recognize we played a role in that, and we have for hundreds and hundreds of years. I think that's the first part. So us sounding the alarm, putting in the press, God rest her soul, Dr. Susan Moore, putting that viral video opened the eyes of so many people who refused to see the disparities and the bias in healthcare. Because once that came out, it was very apparent and obvious that it's no mystery. So the first part is for healthcare institutions, including the medical schools, to recognize we have played a role in this systemic and institutional racism and bias. Another is to lean in, those of you who have any opportunity to interact with anyone in leadership at a healthcare institution or a medical school, and share that you have to address it. So we as an organization with other healthcare institutions in the city are actually working in a collaborative to try and address what is it that we currently know, what is it that the community wants us to know, and how can we actually impact and make a change to have better health outcomes for the community. So we are taking those forward action steps, but it takes a lot of cultural sensitivity, awareness. Like my daughter literally just did some research. She was like, "Mommy, did you know that in slave times they did all of these medical procedures on women slaves completely unsedated?" And she just went through this list, and she's 15, and I'm like, "Stop reading that, like you're gonna have PTSD." Like it was horrifying, the things, so many medical procedures that are now well known were tested on Black women slaves. And so that's the thing that the medical institutions have to stand up and recognize and say, yeah, we played a role in that, because they still teach in medical schools that we don't have the same pain level. Black women don't have the same pain level. Our cells are built differently. Really? A broken foot is different on me than it is on my friend Missy? Really? No, it's not. So honestly, standing up for yourself and advocating in the room, healthcare institutions standing up, including medical institutions, and then when you see an injustice, if you are not able to stand up for yourself, because sometimes they still don't listen, sometimes we have to say, before you answer, I'm a lawyer, but what if you aren't one? Mm-hmm. And what if you don't know one? So you have to use every resource you have. You know you're strategic and resourceful, because we all are. But lean in and say, okay, I'm going to take it to whomever I think is somebody who can make an impact if you don't think it's you. But it is on healthcare institutions.
Yeah, I think the world is so used to Black women being strong that they kind of keep using that same idea in different parts of our lives. Or you can take it, or you're fine, you don't hurt as much as you do, and they start ignoring you. So when we understand the idea about pain tolerance and things of that nature, but we go back to this, the average wealth of a Black woman is $101. You can't afford to go to the doctor if you do get to go. Representative Shackelford, I know you've done work with minority health coalitions and things like that, and you were really ahead of the game with vaccine rollouts and COVID testing. How has the finances, or how has economics played a role in how Black people access health care?
So I would say, when you look at the finances in healthcare, a lot of times we don't see the funding put into those minority communities. We don't see the funding put into minorities being involved in clinical research and making sure that they're getting paid to participate and actually encourage. You see, at the state level, we have a huge disparity when it comes to infant and maternal mortality. African American women have the highest level, highest than it's ever been. And when we try to get the State Department of Health and go to the governor's office and say, look, we got all this funding from the federal government, how about we take some of that funding now and actually put it towards these issues? And you still get kind of that pushback, I don't know, we could probably use this for something else. But we are constantly trying to fight for, if we have all this funding coming down, if it can be utilized to help close the gaps, whether it's economic or with healthcare, then that's where we need to be putting the funding. And I just wanted to touch on real quick to go back when we're talking about something to advocate for and making sure that our providers and physicians are properly trained on cultural awareness and diversity and how important it is. So I do have a piece of legislation. It did not get heard last session. I even tried to get it studied this summer. It didn't get studied in the midst of everything that was going on with Dr. Susan Moore. So now I'm taking it to the national level and did a resolution. I sent it to NBCSL, which is the National Black Caucus of State Legislators. We meet in December. And then I sent it to the National Caucus of State Legislators, which is all the state legislators. Once I get it approved at the national level and get that resolution approved that this is something that should be done, all healthcare providers should be trained on how to treat their clients properly. Then I will
Culturally
come back
competent
to the state.
care.
Then I will come back to our state to make sure we get it passed at the state level. But this is an advocacy moment. This is one of those pieces that you can get behind and push and say this should be supported. And I'll just start with a story. My father is 88, so I constantly have to take him to his doctor's appointments. He has congestive heart failure, and then he also has a failing kidney, so he's on dialysis 3 times a week. And I was sharing with my colleague here that I just took him to an appointment today all the way up in Fishers. He's down over off 30th and Clifton. So those of you know where 30th and Clifton is, compared to taking him all the way up to 136 and off 69. But one time he was in the hospital, we were in the hospital, and we could not get in contact with his doctor. Like, you know when you're sitting there and you're like, okay, I'm gonna make sure I see the doctor. So I came in the evening, I never saw the doctor. I came in the morning. So they were like, okay, if you come this morning, you can probably catch in a doctor. In the meantime, I done wrote on a little board, because you know how they have the family write on the board. I'm like, we need a meeting, because I don't know like what is going on with him, where he's at his health care. And he really can't tell me, because at the time, he's one of those people that's in there because of the congestive heart failure, you're retaining water, but we didn't know if it was that or his kidney. So lo and behold, I come in like at 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm sitting there and I'm signing birthday certificates for the House of Representatives, my birthday certificates. His doctor finally comes in. I'm like, oh my goodness. So I'm just listening to the doctor, talk to my father. So he notices the birthday certificates that I'm signing. And he's like, oh, House of Representatives. So he's like, oh, you're in the House of Representatives? I'm like, yes, I am. I'm not dressed like I was. I'm in my hospital dress, sweats. And a sweat and tennis shoes. So I'm like, yes, I am. So then his whole attitude changed. He's like, here's my personal number, here's my card, call me directly, get an update on your father, I can let you know where he is. They should have been doing family meetings, but it should not take that. Like Angie said, everyone's not an attorney, everyone's not a state legislator, but everyone deserves to be treated fairly. Yeah. We're all paying the same price. He's a veteran. He not only has Medicare, but he has private pay. So he should be at the top. He is paying at a premium rate, but yet you are treating him because he's a black man down here, and that has to stop.
Yeah. And I think all of these, all of what you said is a part of educating yourself and knowing what to do and how to advocate for yourself. And when we talk about education, that kind of goes back to the foundation that we had. And I like to bring it back to Ms. Marshall now. Talk about just how vital school is to kind of giving us those tools to teach ourselves, to learn what we need to do to navigate this world, how vital it is to feed into the foundation so that when we become adults, we know how to stand up for ourselves. We know how to advocate for ourselves.
Absolutely. Schools have got to recognize where their resources are. When I came in and they walked Madam Shackelford down to me, I said, you remember you spoke to my girls, right? Then we watched Maggie Lewis come in. I said, she spoke to my girls, right? And so school leaders are focused on, I mean, they have a lot on their plates. But if we don't take the responsibility of bringing in those resources to feed into our youth,
then we're missing an opportunity. So it's extremely important, and it's even more important that we build them up. We've got to build up our youth. And Black women, let me tell you, when I had the opportunity to be the founding principal of an all-girl middle school academy, 99% African American, and I'll never forget that moment. That was literally the best moment in my life, because every day I walked out, I saw an image of me, and they saw an image of themselves. And I was just sharing, it feels good because now I've got that final group graduating college, and to watch them go out, and I know that they'll be contributing to society.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, ladies. I know we've covered a broad spectrum of different conversations, dealing with economics, dealing with healthcare, education, politics, all across the board. And I know some key takeaways for me was just confidence. Having confidence, knowing that you have a voice despite the color of your skin or despite your gender. And I think those are some of the key takeaways that we can apply to pretty much everything. So again, thank you so much. I know it was rainy out there. I know it was gloomy, but thank you so much. Thank you to the audience for being such great listeners. And I would like to give all of these wonderful women a huge round of applause.
Well done. Stand. Thank you, ladies. Thank you.
And Shannon and Gabrielle don't need introductions because they're already up there.
Ladies, just phenomenal. And I'm not surprised. But in sitting here listening to you, I was reminded of one of my favorite poems by Lucille Clifton called "Won't You Celebrate With Me?" And I'd like to read it to you as a gift for your wisdom that you poured into us tonight. Lucille Clifton, won't you celebrate with me? Won't you celebrate with me what I have shaped into a kind life? I had no model. Born in Babylon, both non-white and woman, what did I see to be except myself? I made it up, here on this bridge between starshine and clay, my one hand holding tight my other hand. Come celebrate with me that every day something has tried to kill me and has failed. Won't you celebrate with me? Thank you for your wisdom tonight, for your brilliance, for your power, for kicking down doors and creating a table for all of us to be together. I now ask everyone to be together with us. It's essential that we continue to amplify the real lived experiences that we have as Black women. And so I ask you to go into your swag bags right now, take a look. There's an incredible little business card with a cute little QR code. And I'm gonna ask you to take a picture of that QR code, post it to your Twitter, post it to your Instagram. I don't do the TikTok, but if you do the TikTok, do it there. Post it, post the findings from our research to say that we are here. And we demand different solutions this time at the ballot box. Tag us at Lead Highland and at the Mind Trust. I'm gonna ask you to do a second thing when you get home with that beautiful swag bag. I'm gonna ask you to take out a postcard. There is a postcard inside that to me reminds us of the power of our vote and that we must keep showing up. And so in that card, you're going to find a postcard that has instructions about how to vote, about checking your vote, and our ask is that you send it to a friend, a family member, a colleague, to remind them that midterms, they are a year out. That's right. And we need to show up in the same ways that we showed up in this past election. And then finally, perhaps most importantly, I ask you tonight to pull out that beautiful journal and reflect. I ask you to continue to vision a different world where we are valued, where we are invested in, where we are thriving. Because it's essential that we protect our joy when we talk about multi-generational work.
Thank you. Gabrielle, you just said everything perfectly, so I don't have to say very much, but I do want to thank everyone, not only those of you in attendance here today, but also those who are joining us virtually. So much for joining us. Thank you so much. These ladies, all 5 of you, I love and respect each of you so much, and I am just so grateful that you were able to join us and share your perspectives. It was just really tremendous. So let's give them another round of applause. Gabrielle, you and the Highland Project are so phenomenal. I just appreciate you for being such an inspiration. This woman has been so transformative on the national level. Like, we'd be here all night if I explained everything that she did, but she is really speaking truth to action, and she is really putting her efforts to life and really working on ensuring that Black women get the resources, the access that they deserve and that they need. So just thank you so much for traveling all the way from DC to be with us today. We really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. Don't forget to go and visit the Black Cultural Center. It's going to be open for about another 30 minutes. We have the Women Elite voters outside if you want to register to vote. Hopefully most of you are already registered, but if not, go register to vote, and definitely check us out at themindtrust.org to learn all about the great work that we're doing. Thank you so much, and safe travels home.